So let's answer the question, is Batman Begins really as good as we remember? Let's start off with what I really like about this movie. After rewatching it again after a few years, the characterization of Bruce Wayne is definitely still a highlight. Really, the most impressive thing the movie accomplishes is making you actually care about Bruce Wayne, not just Batman. He's not just some rich guy that decides to beat up criminals as a hobby. He actually goes on a journey to better understand criminals and face his internal fears. We see how he realizes that killing petty criminals really does nothing. The organized crime is the real issue. And so he gives up everything. His name, his money, even his coat. It's a nice coat.
Nice coat.
You could talk about character development all day, but one way to make people care about Bruce Wayne is to make him a ninja. One of the most interesting things about all these scenes with the League of Shadows is that you'd never really know it's a Batman movie by just watching these scenes alone. It really helps to make the movie feel original and fresh. With all this build-up training with the League of Shadows, it really makes the Batman reveal so much more exciting, even though it takes place an entire hour into the runtime. Director Christopher Nolan really wisely used horror elements to really emphasize how terrifying Batman can be, which was kind of needed considering the state of the Batman franchise prior to that, with campy movies like Batman and Robin.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman. This guy stinks!
Here, Batman just doesn't punch his way through these guys. He makes them disappear into the shadows. So when he finally reveals himself, you really buy into it.
I'm Batman.
I also like how they didn't just make him Batman because bats are kind of generally freaky. They actually made bats like a phobia for Bruce Wayne. So his choice of becoming Batman is really him facing that fear. This scene in particular is great. Bruce's first reaction is to turn away in fear as most people would. I mean, come on, look at those bats. I'd be rolling on the ground right now. But he immediately knows this is what he was looking for. A way to embrace his fear and stand against it. Only then can he become a symbol. And man, Christian Bale does such an amazing job in this role. In a way, he's really playing the three main roles of the Batman character. The true Bruce Wayne, the reckless billionaire persona he takes on to avoid suspicion, and the Batman. And of course, one of the standouts of his performance is his Batman voice.
Where were the other drugs going?
I think there is a good balance between the demonic voice and the more quiet, chilled out Batman voice. When he's talking to allies anyway. And of course, I can't review this movie without mentioning Michael Caine as Alfred. Alfred just feels like the role he was meant to play. He absolutely nails humorous lines like this.
What is the point of all those push-ups if you can't even lift a bloody log?
Plus, he does a really great job of being that supportive father figure that keeps Bruce going at his lowest moments. And I think that's the most important thing a version of Alfred has to do. No offense to Michael Gough from the previous Batman movies. He did a good job with what he was given. Unfortunately, we'll never get the chance to see Michael Caine deliver such amazing lines like this one.
I'll cancel the pizza.
Another thing I enjoy is how Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer's writing here makes use of so many callbacks to previous lines. It really does a great job of making everything feel connected with satisfying conclusions. It works pretty well with humor too. For example, Morgan Freeman has one of the best callback lines I've seen in any movie.
Didn't you get the memo?
Speaking of comedy, this movie has way more humor than I thought it did. It's kind of surprising considering how Marvel movies are generally seen as the comedic comic book movies and the Dark Knight Trilogy is more bleak and grounded. But that's not entirely the case, especially when it's pretty much any line surrounding the Tumbler, aka the Batmobile.
I gotta get me one of those.
Gary Oldman is especially good at delivering lines like that. I don't think you could get anyone better to play Commissioner Gordon. Sure, his performance is really human and grounded and benefits the movie greatly, but nobody's got a mustache like that. That's Jim Gordon's mustache, and Gary Oldman has it. I could go on, but there are a few negatives that I should mention. Now, most of these could probably be defined as nitpicks, but, balanced review and all that. I definitely enjoy Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow, but I do think that he's a little bit underdeveloped as a villain. Maybe that's just when comparing him to Ra's al Ghul, who has more of a direct connection to Bruce. But it does sort of feel like Scarecrow is there to deliver the fear gas and get tased by Rachel at the end. And I suppose you could argue that getting tased isn't exactly the most cinematic ending for that character. But yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Scarecrow, but he got lines like this.
He's here. Who? The Batman.
So it all balances out. This next one isn't really a nitpick either, it's just kind of confusing. I just think it's a little weird that Bruce's mom Martha kind of gets left out of this. I get that their purpose was really to focus in on Bruce's dad and see how that influenced him, but it would have been nice for Martha to have at least like one line that connects with Bruce instead of just one or two lines in the whole movie. So to answer the question, is Batman Begins as good as I remember? Yeah, it is. Despite any nitpicks I have, every time I watch this movie I find something new to appreciate. So let me know what you thought of Batman Begins in the comments, and I'll see you next time.